Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Advisory Finance Committee meeting number 8 for fiscal year 23. Today is October 3rd, 2022. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, meetings conducted by hybrid means will be conducted in person and via remote access in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body may access these meetings excuse me, in person or via remote means by using the link posted. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by accessing the meeting by in-person attendance only. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast in real time via Westborough TV, Verizon Channel 28, or Charter Channel 192, and concurrently recorded, and as soon as possible after the meeting, posted on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. So I propose without objection that we hold approval of the minutes until after our guest presentations. Moving on, so our first guest this evening is, we have two, Michael Stanton, Chairman of the Wastewater Treatment Plant Board, and Jack Goodall, Chief Engineer at the Wastewater Treatment Plant. And they are here to speak about Article 20 on the warrant. So gentlemen, the floor is yours for your presentation. And Jack, I imagine our folks are going to help you doing the screen share.
Okay. I'm Mike Stanton. Jack is up on the screen. He's here remotely. As Mr. Chairman mentioned, I'm the chairman of the Wastewater Treatment Plant Board. I'll give a quick breakdown of what the board consists of. It's we have 3 members. We share the plant with the town of Shrewsbury, even though it's located in Westborough. Shrewsbury contributes, I think it's, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around 66% of the flow that comes through. Westborough's at 30-something%, and then we have a small portion of flow from the town of Hopkinton, but Hopkinton is really no voting rights or anything to that effect. So there's 3 members of the board from Westborough and 3 members of the board from Shrewsbury. Our function is to oversee the operation of the plant. We contract Veolia Water, I believe it's still called Veolia Water, to actually physically operate the plant. So we meet on a monthly basis, once a month, you know, again, we oversee what they do. We're responsible for the budgetary issues, capital expenditures, things of that nature. So that's why we're here tonight. Jack is going to present what the article consists of, what it's all about, why we're here, why we need to have this article, and so forth. So I'll turn it over to Jack now.
Okay. Just to correct Mike a little bit, the percentages or payment percentages based upon flow are 60% Shrewsbury, plus or minus 35 Westborough, and 5 Hopkinton, plus or minus.
Jack, could I ask you to increase your volume on your microphone, please?
Yeah. We'll try that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try screen sharing if I could. See what happens.
That's close enough.
Can everybody see the table okay?
Looks good.
Yeah, table's up.
Thank you.
Okay. We received $4 million at the March 21 annual town meeting, and we're asking for another $4,250,000 at this one. On the screen is a list of items that we expect to include in the article. These are items that have come, they've been on the board's capital expenditures program. But the primary reason that we're here is the road replacement project, and that's the biggest cost item as well. And I'd like to concentrate on that if I could, field questions on the others, but really the road project is the crux of what we're trying to do, and it's a very important part. The rotors are contained. This is an aerial of the plant. You can see the solar system in the foreground, and to the left is a kind of an oval, almost circular based upon the view, but that's the aeration ditches. I don't know if you can see my arrow, but I'm putting my arrow at the aeration ditches on the left-hand side. The wastewater flows through the aeration ditches, and the primary task of the aeration ditches is to introduce air into the wastewater stream. It's called mixed liquor in the structure, but is to introduce air. The mixed liquor or wastewater in the system contains bugs which eat the organic matter in the wastewater. The inorganic, most of it is removed through the previous structures that the wastewater goes through. But in this structure is where the organics are kind of eaten by the bugs. Then they go to another structure, the secondary clarifiers, where they settle out. So without the aeration system, we won't be able to treat wastewater and comply with the discharge permit that we have. It's as simple as that. A secondary issue is that the rotors also move the wastewater along, preventing settlement. But the primary one is to introduce air. The current rotors were installed about 10 years ago during the upgrade, between the time period of 2010-2012. There's 13 rotors in the system. After a couple of years of service, the operators noticed severe vibration, and the supplier of the rotors came out and they actually reinforced some of the bridges that support the rotors in order to get the vibration within acceptable limits. However, in July of 2010, well, let me go back. This is another picture of the oxidation ditches. You can see the white period, the white areas is where the air is being introduced into the system. And here you see there's 13. I don't know if it's full screen. Let's go up there and see. Yeah, okay. There's 13, there's one that's below the screen, but there's 13 rotors, as I said. But in July of 2020, the rotor failed. Here's a picture of one end of the rotor. If you look, it's going down into the mixed liquor. It is not to do that. It's supposed to be consistently across. It's supposed to be a straight shaft. At the other end, you can get a better picture of the rotor itself, because this is mostly above water, but it is, if you look closely, you can see it's going down into the wastewater. So the board, Veolia, as part of their contract, they had sufficient monies in what we call their repair and maintenance account to replace the rotor. It pretty well cleaned them out, but they had sufficient monies to do it under emergency situation. So they had Kruger, the supplier, come in and replace the rotor. While they were also at it, they did a study to analyze the other 12 rotors. Now, the question was, what's the condition of the other rotors? The condition of the other rotors was, it varied, but most of them were poor condition. The expected life of the rotors is 12 to 15 years. So if you look at the fact that they went in, let's say in 2011 into operation, it was, again, it was between 10 and 12 that they went in. You're up to 2025 at the outside of the life expectancy. Many of the paddles, and that's those blades that you see, the funny looking things, many of them were missing or in a state of disrepair as well. So the board debated a lot of alternatives that had. Do we replace them in kind? Do we replace them piecemeal? Do we replace the entire thing, including the drives, which had most of those had to be replaced as well, just because of age? So what should the board do? Should the blades be carbon steel, such as currently they are, or should they be stainless steel to give them additional life? So the board discussed all of that, and at the end of the day, they decided they wanted thicker shafts. The shaft of the Kruger rotors is 3/8 inch. They decided they wanted 3/4 inch. They also decided they wanted stainless steel blades. So as part of my work, I came up with an estimate of what it would cost to replace the rotors using Kruger's estimate of what it cost them to replace rotor number 5. And what I did was, during my research, I dealt heavily I contacted, at the request of the board, every supplier that I could find that made rotors, whether they be, these are called brush rotors. There's also disc rotors where discs turn instead of the blades that you see. So I contacted all of them. Only one of them responded to my queries. And they were able to give me an estimate of what a typical 30-foot long rotor would cost. So I inserted that into my cost estimate, and I came up with the cost that you saw on the table of $2.7 million, around numbers. So we had an approximate cost. We went to town meeting, and we got the $4 million for the project. At the start of the design, the engineers sat down with 2 contractors and talked about the job in general numbers. Again, they didn't have plans and specs, just general discussion. The contractors felt that this was more of a $3.5 to $4 million project, not the 2.7 that I had estimated. So fast forward, make a long story short, on September 25th of this year, we opened bids. The low bidder was Waterline, and their bid was just a shade under $5.5 million. What we did was we added some money for engineering during construction, and that's how we got the $5.7 million for the rotors. So my estimate was obviously under, and as well as the construction. I can only assume it has to do with the economy and the fact that things are upside down now in the construction field as far as costs go, and also the fact that because we are trying to maintain treatment, we can only take 3 rotors out at a time, and this causes a delay because they have to be taken out, they have to be tested for their vibration, make sure that the vibration is not occurring, and then reinstalled, and then retest it again. And the engineers estimated, they allocated 4 years for it to occur. After discussions with the contractor, again, the contract has not been signed, so I should say with the pending contractor, it's felt that they could probably get it down to 1.5 to 2 years if they coordinate with the supplier and if everything goes well. So that's where we're at, and that's why we're asking for the money.
Any questions? Beth?
How long are these expected to last? I mean, like, did doubling the diameter increase the longevity?
I didn't hear what.
Sorry, how long are these expected to last? Did doubling the diameter of the rotor increase the longevity?
Yeah, everything we've done through the design process will increase what the typical life expectancy is. I think Jack mentioned 10 to 12 years. I think we're talking 12 to 15 years now, Jack, because of the stainless steel aspect.
Yeah, the ESI, and that's a picture that you have in front of you. The rotors are under construction, but you can see to the left. But to answer the question, that query was put out to ESI, the manufacturer of the new rotors. And they indicated that we should use 15 to 20 years. They have other rotors in service longer than that, but that is what he was comfortable in providing to the engineers. So the time is longer.
So we've gone from 10 to 12 years to 15 to 20 years.
And is there any warranty with it?
There is warranty, correct, Jack?
Yes. I'm not too sure what it is, but it's a year or two. Standard warranty for items like this. If I could add, the cost of the shaft thickness and the cost of the stainless steel is an extra, but it's not. That is not why the price is up. Again, I utilized that the price of the supplier in the estimate of 2.7. That did not go up. In fact, because he was bidding on it, it went down a little bit, I believe. So that does not enter into the cost. What enters into the cost is the general contractor's work, not the rotors.
Not the manufacturing.
Okay, so it's installation.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which the fewer times we do, the less we have to pay.
Right.
Right.
Andrew?
So when you presented the list at the very beginning of all the different components, of which the rotor was the most expensive, one of the thoughts that occurred to me is that looking at that list, most of those things looked like the kind of things that would happen as a matter of normal maintenance and supply, even rotors with a lifespan. So with an idea that much of this is supposedly built into what would be part of normal maintenance, and I'm air quoting because this is clearly a big piece of maintenance, but what would be part of expected maintenance, why, could you explain to me where this money hadn't been previously allocated on expenses that have already been, charged to any of the cooperating towns or the cooperating bodies, so that the money wasn't available for these sort of ongoing maintenance concerns?
Yes. If I could, the Veolia's contract does include an allocation for repair and maintenance. There are other items that are on the capital expenditures list that were not on this list. At the beginning, once the board decided that it would need more money, and that's because of the rotors, I sat down with the plant manager and figured out which items he could do under his umbrella and which ones have to be in the article. Their contract, again, does include an allowance for repair and operation, for repair and maintenance, but the contract also indicates that for capital expenditures over and above R&M, the board is responsible for obtaining the money. And that is why the board is going for the article. The monies will be paid back every year through the invoicing that we do through annual invoicing. We invoice all 3 towns, including Westborough. And that way there, everything is transparent. And the town of Westborough receives money from the town of Shrewsbury and the town of Hopkinton. Again, based upon flow percentages, it's 60 and 5 approximately from those 2 towns. And that is how the intermunicipal agreement was set up, is the town of Westborough would front it and the towns would reimburse the town, Westborough.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Andrew, finish.
No, I said thank you.
Oh, sorry. Walter?
So I'm understanding this correctly, that only Westborough has to vote a capital article, and then, so Shrewsbury doesn't even have a choice.
That's correct.
In this.
That's
We vote the capital article, but they're going to pay some percentage based on
That's
their
correct.
use of the capital. We pay some, and Hopkinton is home.
As Jack mentioned, that's the way the intermunicipal agreement was written.
Okay. But we have to do the full amount because
Right.
you have to do the full amount. You have to approve the full amount.
Yeah.
But as Westborough wastewater users, we would pay part of that.
Right. It'll be 30-something% of that.
Beth, you have another question?
That was the question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the ratepayers end up, Rod?
First off, as the liaison to the water treatment plant, I had my opportunity to attend my first meeting, and I have to say I was impressed with their organization and particularly Jack's knowledge of what's happening and the amount of thought that's gone into this. But I do have a few questions, and one is, what are the rates now, and how will the rates be affected by spending this money?
We do not govern the rates. That's done, Jack, correct? That's done at the town level?
That's correct.
We have
The
nothing
rates
to do with the
include
rates.
the DPW, the portion of DPW associated with sewer, and includes the treatment plant associated with town of Westborough. But we don't, as well as the borrowing that is done for the sewer system and the treatment plant. So all of that would be in the rates. I do not know the impact on the rates. That would be
Yeah, I don't know that either.
Finance Department, I believe.
Just so you know, I've checked with the town finance director, asked for an estimate of the cost of capital on this borrowing. So that 4.25 million does not reflect the borrowing costs, which will be included in the rates.
Is there somebody that could provide us with an estimate of what they think, how this would affect the rates?
Well, I don't know when, to be honest with you, I don't know when they set the rates for water and sewer, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay?
And there may be a year delay till things actually happen.
Could
And
be.
there's offsets from the payments from the other towns.
Yes.
So it's yeah.
It doesn't all fall on us.
Right.
That's correct.
It depends upon how many years the town of Westborough, again, the town of Westborough dictates the duration of the borrowings. So usually you have temporary borrowings and then permanent borrowings, and that would go into the equation, as well as the fact that you'd be paying 35% of, well, you'd be reimbursed for 65% of the annual borrowing costs, the payback, principal and interest.
Yeah, unfortunately, as was said, it all comes out of the same wallet. So,
Right.
Andrew?
Could you give me some sense about the urgency around the timing of this and why this isn't something that's built into sort of the annual town review where we're looking at the whole town budget and everything else?
Yeah, if I understood that whole question, I'm not sure. The urgency, it's absolute. The urgency is, I mean, this is, if these rotors fail, we cannot meet our permits. We will be in violation of our permits. It will have an extreme adverse effect on the operation of the plant. And this is, I think, Jack, you could probably speak to it better than I can. It's not uncommon. I mean, it's equipment that is used all day, every day, and it happens. I mean, and they're not at the point where we've had one fail, okay? If we get to the point where we have multiple failures, we're in trouble. So this is, some of it is being proactive as far as replacing them because they are beyond their life expectancy. We've got more out of them than we probably should have. So, you know, the old adage, you know, we're playing with fire. You know, so we've got a schedule set up so that they can methodically take them offline piecemeal and keep the operation going without any interruption, without any issues as far as permitting goes. But in the meantime, if one or two or three of them just happen to go down at the same time, we've got a serious problem. And that's why, we've been working on this longer than I wish we had been working on it. I wish this had already gone to bid and we were in the production phase of it. But with just the way that everything has been going on the last 2 or 3 years with COVID and everything else, things have dragged out a little bit, as far as, much longer than I would have liked to see myself, but we're at the mercy of a lot of different things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could add, the board debated this ad infinitum, if I could say it that way. Should we wait until the next one fails and just replace that? The issue, like Mike indicated, is if we can live without 3, not a problem. If you see rotor number 5 is in the upper right-hand corner of the schematic. So when green means they're in operation, red means they're out of operation. So when that failed, number 4 stepped up and became green. But what happens if number 4 had failed in the same way, the catastrophic failure that number 5 did by bending, where you're inoperable? Not the fact that you're getting old, but you fail. And number 5 failed, as the picture showed. How many more? We've been lucky, I think, that the others have not failed. And we don't know why number 5 failed, and the supplier would not tell us. They gave no clue at all. They were mum on the whole thing. They have, however, we found out through the RFP process where we were selecting the supplier, they have increased their thickness to 1/2 inch. So they did increase their thickness to 1/2 inch from 3/8. Did that have anything to do with number 5 failing? Don't know. Did the vibration I was mentioning have anything to do with the vibration? We don't know. And these things were talked about by the board. And if you get too many of the rotors out of service, like Mike said, you cannot comply with a discharge permit. You are putting wastewater into the Assabet River that is high in organics. I don't need to say anything about that, I don't think. And I don't think you want that done. You're not only looking at economic issue by the fact that you have to pay fines, but you're looking at an environmental issue by putting semi-treated wastewater into the river. So you're between a rock and a hard place. The board felt it was between a rock and a hard place.
Beth?
Have there been changes or improvements in wastewater technology that possibly this is now old school and there's something better out there?
No. There's a lot of different aeration systems.
Right.
To devise the system that we have, you're talking replacing it with a different setup, which would be astronomical in
I
cost.
understand, but I just thought I'd ask.
Okay, yeah. As I mentioned, the board did look at discs, which is another type. It's still the same basic idea, and that's what we had before.
Jack, I think to answer Beth's question is there other processes? I'm sure there is, but this is what we have. So to Jack's point, yeah, we could have gone to a different type of rotor, but we're set up for rotors. We would have to just totally change our operation, and we're not in a position to do that at this point. If we were building a new plant, we might say, okay, you know, we're not going to go to this old technology. We're going to go to the new technology.
Well, it's like when they were trying to clean up the Charles years and years ago, they used to put air bubblers in, you know, to churn up. And, you know, this rotor system seems like it's a variation on that theme. So I wondered if those could work as a temp, you know, like not in place of, but, you know, should one of your systems fail.
Yeah, I was
just curious.
That's above my knowledge.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, you have a secondary issue with the rotors, and that's to move the wastewater.
Yeah.
You have to get it to flow around that speed, velocity that would not induce settling. The air that you're talking about, the air is a viable alternative to the entire ditch system, but you're talking a different structure. You're not talking this structure. Because of you want to move it along, you're talking about either essentially without replacing the structure, not the rotors, the structure, you're talking either brush or disc rotors. That's it, unless we replace the whole structure.
Gene?
I just wanted to ask, aside from the risk of, you know, multiple failures that would put you out of commission, if you did decide to replace these as they failed, I mean, obviously it's going to drive the cost of replacement up. Do you have a sense of what multiple that would be?
Yeah, I think it would drive the cost. Plus, there's an absolute lead time to getting these. These aren't sitting on a shelf.
Right.
You know, it's not like, you know, a valve maybe fails and you can go down to the distributor and get another valve. You know, they're literally going to manufacture these as we go here, and then the testing that's involved, like Jack mentioned, they're literally going to remove our bridges and bring them to Pennsylvania, and when the rotor is set up, is built, they're gonna attach it to the bridge in their facility and do a vibration testing, all kinds of different vibration tests to make sure we don't run into the same problem that caused the last failure. So, you know, if one of them dies out, you know, where it's down for the count for months, you know, so now if we've got multiples that do that, not only, you know, you're talking cost, you're talking, you know, big time span, lead times.
If I could add as well, one issue that we really haven't talked about is the fact that the rotors are aging. And as I mentioned before, the paddles are in disrepair, some are missing, and some need to be replaced because they're worn down. That leads to inefficient operation of the rotor. And so you have to adjust the speed to the drive if it's variable, and which means that you have to spend electricity to get the same level of treatment than if you had
efficiently.
panels were not. So you're talking efficiency as well.
Right.
As these things age, they get beyond their life, they're going to start failing even more just because of old age, never mind rotor 5's problem. And you're talking less efficiency, and at some point, you're talking about replacing. So, like I mentioned before, if you look at the outside is 15 years for these items. You're looking at, many of them were installed in 2011. So you're looking at 26. This is considered to be a 4-year project. At the end of this project, they're there. So you should be replacing them at that time as well.
Well,
Just so to follow up on that, since these things, they take a bridge, they put a new one, I assume even though we would do them all at the same time, we're really not doing them all at the same time. We still have to have some kind of sequence because you got to leave some
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, they can't all be done. at the
You're
same
picking whatever one
Right.
you think is all.
Right, I think, yeah, they're gonna try and evaluate and take, and it's basically an eyeball test, I think, and say, okay,
Yeah, based upon the meeting that we had before, again, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but the idea is to do them 2 or 3 at a time. So in an instance, again, this is not set in concrete. This was, it's a work in progress. But the idea is perhaps to take out 6 and 1, which is on the right-hand side of the screen, get those in, then maybe take out 3 and 8. Get those replaced, and then take out, like say something like 5, 10, and 13. Take those out, get them replaced. So the idea is to take 2 or 3 as you look at it away, and if the supplier, again, he's bound by certain things in his proposal, but if the supplier is comfortable doing the testing on site, then we can decrease the time that it takes to do all of that. You don't have to send the bridges down to Pennsylvania. You can leave them up here and do everything up here. So that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that we can condense this down to, like say, 1.5 years, 2 years, something like that. But everything's going to have to work perfect for that to occur.
Rod?
So I've spent a fair amount of time looking at the numbers, and I agree with the number that's being proposed here. That being said, there's a lot of smart people in that room, including their engineers and Jack, and there's very healthy contingency in this as well as escalation. And I really, and I'll be there too, but hope that the Water Treatment Board will really strive to get this number down. And what happens if the numbers come in less than what's being asked for here?
The town doesn't borrow the money. And so there's, at some point, we would have to go and cancel the extra that you have authorization for. But basically, you just don't spend it. So if you don't need the money, you don't spend it. But if you need it, then you borrow it. So again, usually they short term, every year, they ask the board how much they want for the coming year for short-term borrowing. We just pay for interest. And then at some point, the finance department will go out for a permanent borrow. And that's where that's where you start paying principal and interest, and whether it be 10, 20, 15, whatever duration the finance department and probably the town manager decide on. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
Melanie?
I was just wondering, so it's a 1.5 year long process. Who takes possession of do we possess them all at the same time, the rotors? And if so, how are we keeping them out of the elements until they're in place?
That was discussed, but there's in there, and it's still being discussed. There's a few different things that go in with that. One of them being warranty. We were talking about warranty. Typically with manufacturers, as soon as you take possession, the warranty clock starts running, okay? So we've asked the engineer, our consulting engineer, to reach out to the manufacturer to see if there would be an allowance of some sort to stall the warranty clock. We haven't got that answer back yet, correct, Jack?
Yeah, I believe we did. Again, a lot of things were talked about at the meeting that we had last week, and that was one of them. I believe that the supplier said that the warranty started when they are put in operation, but that is something that, again, he can only make them so fast as well. So he can't deliver 13 in one day because it's going to take him a half a year between the time that the contract signed and him to start delivering these things. So there's going to be a down period, and it's just how often, again, he's got to do the testing. So what's his turnaround time going to be? And you can only deliver the 13 rotors to the plant if you're going to do the testing at the plant. But they want to do the testing at their facility down there of the bridge. So at this time, delivering 13 up front is not an option because of the way that the project's structured.
Right. So, Jack, to that point, hold on one second, Jack.
It is.
Jack,
Yep.
hold on one second. To that point, we'd be moving them twice. So they would deliver them to us, and then they'd have to take them back as they were going to test them with the bridges. So you've got freight and everything else going back and forth. So it kind of doesn't make sense for us. That was something we absolutely discussed at length, was just having them all produced and bring them. We've got a place to store them had we decided to do it that way. But it's just logistics and so forth. And again, the warranty question that kind of squashed that idea.
Yeah, again, if I could, the idea that the contractor and the supplier discussed with us, well, the contractor discussed with us, but they are discussing with themselves. Many of these items are on the table to be discussed and to be worked out to be as efficient, cost-effective as possible and timely. But they're the ones that have to deal with it. They know we want to expedite it. Truthfully, the supplier wants his money up front, so he's going to want to do it as fast as he can, because you're talking, the cost of the rotors is, now it's 1.8 million, but you have inflation to add to it as of a year or so ago. But he wants his money as soon as he can. So he's going to expedite it as much as he feels he can or he should. And same with the contractor. The contractor wants to get this wrapped up so they can move on to another project.
So just to get some level of long-range comfort, presumably as we go through this replacement process, there's a protocol being put in place for downrange or over-the-horizon inspection and testing, so we don't have the catastrophic failures.
That's correct.
And find ourselves up against the wall again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you
We
for having
appreciate you
us.
taking the time to be with us this evening. And,
I have one final comment for Jack.
Please.
So Jack, there's a rumor that you're retiring soon. How are we going to have that wealth of knowledge on the board when that happens?
Well, we think we might have that taken care of, but
Yeah.
that's,
Retire?
we'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
He's going nowhere until we have that taken care of. I've told him that for the last 2 years. He's been trying, he's had a half a foot out the door and we keep pulling him back in, so.
Thanks for all your hard work, Jack.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Great, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Amber Bach and Steve Durrett were supposed to join us after they finished with the selectmen's meeting, but I guess they were behind schedule? Was that what you saw?
They hadn't come back out of executive session, at least
Okay.
for
All
a
right.
couple minutes later than expected, so I didn't hang around watching to see when they came out.
Okay. What's that? Would you like to join us at the head table?
I got, no.
Okay, so in the interest of time, what we're going to do is begin voting on the warrant articles. And Walter and I have worked out a process, and it's going to go like this. I will name the article number and title, and I will ask, are you ready to vote on this article without further discussion? If that is the case, we will proceed to a motion, and in the interest of time and efficiency, Walter will make all the motions. And
Are there any printed copies, or which day is the final one?
the final is,
5 September 26th.
right.
There's a final after
No,
that.
it's actually final.
Got the wrong one.
Which is why I...
might take a peek.
I think I have one back.
Presumably, you've all done your homework, so
Lots of reading, but...
Jean will be tracking the vote and will also, unless somebody feels it compelling that they appear on the record, Jean will be the person who seconds the motion. Okay?
Mike, may I ask? For some of these, there's a number of different methods of funding that are suggested.
thank you.
Do you have a timetable from the town management when they will decide how they want to fund some of these?
I have not gotten anything yet. We're in the process of working with the finance director on tax implications
Okay.
and on the funding, some of the funding issues, and where the funds are going to come from. But
So
let-
until we know some of those motions, it may make sense for us to just hold off and bypass those.
Well,
potentially.
yes, well, let me continue on what the protocol was that we worked out for this meeting. If there is discussion requested on a particular article, we're going to put that article at the back of the list, okay? And we'll get to it as time permits. I'm going to recommend to you that we hold our votes until Thursday on the following articles. Articles 6 and 7, which pertain to the out-of-district tuition. Articles 15 and 16, which pertain to the library construction.
Sorry, which numbers?
15 and 16. Article 20, which pertains to the wastewater treatment plant. Article 29, with respect to the plastic bag bylaw. And Article 30, with respect to the Hastings School issue, which Superintendent Bach is going to be presenting to us later. So if there are no objections to doing that,
So those ones are the ones you're saying, hey, I want to hold. And then if we go through and say
Essentially,
we
you're
have
saying you
something,
have a
that's an
question,
addition.
yeah,
We're going to hold them
yeah.
either way.
Yeah, well, and to speak to Andrew's concern about funding, you know, those are you have the big borrow on the library, et cetera.
Yeah, okay.
So. I'm sorry, 14 what?
We'll go through them all. Let's-
Yeah, we're going to go through them. Let us go through them, guys. One at a time. We're not holding
discuss it.
wastewater,
If you
we'll
have a
discuss it.
question, we will,
Yeah, we're not recommending a hold on that. When we get there, if there's a question on discussion, then we'll hold it. Okay? Just trying to keep everything in sequence. Here we go. Article number 1, prior year bills, proposed by the Select Board. Are you ready to vote on this article without further discussion?
Yes.
Walter?
Okay. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 1 to transfer $3,072.89 from free cash for the purpose of paying prior year bills.
Second?
Second, okay.
Yeah.
We have to, because we're hybrid, we have to do this by voice vote?
Am I still alphabetically first?
Yes.
Yes.
Second after you, but Blumberg, yes.
Bradley, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Skip.
yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Zaffer, and I'm staring right at you on my screen. My apologies.
Our first 9-0 vote in a long time.
Okay, Article 2, appropriation of Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund, proposed by the DPW. Are you ready to proceed to a vote on this article without further discussion? It appears that we are. It appears that we are.
Okay.
Sure.
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 2 to transfer $4,740.60 from receipts reserve account for the purpose of road maintenance.
Second?
Okay. Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
9-0.
Article 3, fiscal year 2023 Finance Department budget adjustment proposed by the Select Board. Are you ready to proceed to a vote on this article without further discussion? Here's we are. Yes. Walter?
Okay. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 3 to raise and appropriate $10,962 for the purpose of increasing the Finance Department salary wages budget.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
No.
Article 4, fiscal year 2023 Public Works Department budget adjustment proposed by the DPW. Are you ready to vote on this article without further discussion?
Yes.
It appears we are. Walter?
Okay. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 4 to raise and appropriate $76,000 in addition to the FY 2023 Public Works budget, $31,000 in addition to the FY 2023 Water Enterprise Fund budget, and $10,000 in addition to the FY 2023 Sewer Enterprise budget.
Second?
Blumberg, yes? Or do you, no, you need to ask your question first.
What's,
Blumberg, yes.
okay.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Oh.
Okay, article number 5, building maintenance proposed by the DPW. Are you ready to proceed to vote on this article without further discussion?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready. Walter?
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 5 to transfer $35,000 from free cash for the purpose of building maintenance.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Yes.
Moretti, yes.
9-0.
Okay, we're skipping 6 and 7. Article 8, I think we have to hold in abeyance.
Right.
because we don't know the amount from the contract, and our timing is perfect to
Switch over to school.
switch over, call a halt to the voting, and welcome our guests and let them get settled. And if you need a comfort break, feel free.
I have a mic, I'm good.
Yeah.
Good evening, all.
Hey, Steve.
Steve.
Great. We got,
We'll see if
I'm done. It's the sixth.
I might be able to. I don't know if I can broadcast.
I think you should be able to. Aiden, can the superintendent connect here to use the screen? Okay, thank you.
This would be easier if we can sit here, probably. Hi, Amber Bach, 10 Arch Street, here to provide an update on warrant article. And we just attended the Board of Selectmen and had a meaningful discussion. I'm going to roll to the top here so I can utilize this document when he puts it up. So Steve and I were able to go over and use the memo that I sent you guys earlier today, and I'll step you through it as a context for guiding the discussion. And while he's bringing that up, I'll indicate that I made one amendment to the memo in the sense that I needed to find two other articles that were the composite of the total cost for the sprinkler system. Again, not part of this discussion, but part of the record of that document. So I added those in there for you, and you'll see when I scroll through, and I'll share you into, you have the live Google Doc, but you also have a PDF. So just refer to the live document, and it'll be updated, and I can send it to you afterwards. So while we're waiting for the tech to queue up here, I will say that we left with a recommendation for support from the select board to, and again, you might have to help me summarize, a voted recommendation of support for amending through a motion at town meeting, most likely, the extent of the scope expansion to focus on the completion of the design drawings for the ADA, the HVAC, the windows, and the portion of the roof that would need to be incorporated. And I'll step you through that. I'm just summarizing while we do this. Aiden, are you ready for me to cue this up? Not feeling luck. Wait.
John Arnold about changing the scope, because usually he's the person who says something's out of scope.
Let's wait till we go through everything, and then we can talk
Aiden's
that
coming
through.
back in for a second.
Okay. Aiden, what do I need to do?
Just try unplugging it and replugging it.
It's the old unplugging it and replugging it. Such a highly functional. It looks like it's connecting for me, like it's adjusting, but then it's not coming up. I can just move to the podium. Do you want me to just go to the podium?
For this.
All right. Okay. Sorry, you guys, I apologize.
I got it right.
All right, so Aiden, did you cue it up? All right. Wait a second. Get it? We present in here all the time. Hey, thank you very much. I'm going to small this down a little bit. All right, for anyone joining the start of this discussion, I'm Amber Bach, Superintendent of Schools. I live in 10 Arch Street, and we're here to look at further discussion around a warrant article related to Hastings Elementary School, where we were seeking an adjustment to the scope of the warrant article to allow us to move forward on more design work and more focus on the ADA work at Hastings. And I'm going to step you through that. I just want to say for me, this memo was an important exercise. I was able to go back and dig through town warrant articles all the way back to the start of my work here, actually. And I wanted to kind of codify the process, lay it out, and just kind of articulate the trajectory of work that's been done in shared work with the community and with the town meeting and with all of our boards to manage the buildings, of which Hastings is a pretty complex building. So I'll step you through it. You've read it. I know you're all really good about that, and I won't belabor it, but I'll make sure that I just try to emphasize where we're doing the area of focus, and we can just open it up for discussion. But it is a convoluted process, and I think the fact that we were across the street this long tells you that, one question leads to many others. So as we've said, this building has a history where we knew that when we withdrew from the accelerated repair project in 2018, we knew that we would face the completion of the roof, windows, and doors that we didn't complete during that project. And so the cycle of updates have been kind of then coming forward over multiple years. So in a quick history, you know that in 2015, we did a comprehensive enrollment assessment so that we could find how to adjust the spaces of our 6 schools to manage growing enrollment. We actually made adjustments to multiple buildings, and the trajectory over the last couple of years basically expanded buildings at a level at which we could absorb the enrollment, and it included, of course, the rebuilding of Fales, and it involved picking up space at Hastings. So at that time, we voted the pre-K committee into existence at town meeting. We used a $12,500,000 article to build kind of a sister school preschool, pulling those classrooms out of Hastings, reconfiguring the interior of parts of Hastings, picking up some renovation work in those areas, and gaining an expansion of classroom capacity there. We also, in that same year, we did the updating of the geothermal system, where the heat exchangers had well gone beyond their normal life, but certainly a shout out to the fact that that geothermal system served us exceptionally well in its both its cost savings and trajectory of life. And we then updated and completed that system. When we did the updating of the geothermal system, we started surfacing a discussion of the composite of the air circulation systems in the building, of which the HVAC became a piece of that discussion. And so we looked at the fact that we had kind of a series of things that needed repair there in ways that we could cluster them together meaningfully for cost effectiveness and to complete projects. So when we looked at the composite of things that needed to be done there, working with the town, we entered into the accelerated repair project. We were going to pull in probably close to $9 million in that MSBA structure. We subsequently withdrew from that in collaboration of the development of the fiscal strategy planning on debt. And we then moved forward with any other additional repairs as individual warrant articles. We completed the sprinkler system on a series of 3 articles. And we also filled in the recessed floor area of the library due to safety issues and kind of inadequate space that was not available, given that a giant part of the floor was sunken. That was a $42,000 repair. It's relevant to the discussion because it adds to the magnitude of repair projects done within a scope of time that lead to triggering the code discussions. So what we have at this point, what work is remaining at Hastings? We have the HVAC project with voted monies. We have then the roof that we've trajectory-wise kind of done several things with, and I'll revisit that. Windows, and then the servicing of the ADA code requirements. We'll just refer to them as accessibility requirements. The more extensive code's really the MAAB code. People tend to think of it as ADA because it's more the public discussion, but it really is the MAAB code, which designates public buildings. ADA is triggered when people find that a space isn't compliant, but they're interactive. So we just generally will refer to them as accessibility code issues. So having withdrawn from the accelerated repair project, the replacement of the roof and windows remained for us to complete. The roof was submitted into capital then in cycle in 2018, and we circled it in at a level 3 of priority. And then across the span of the next couple of years, it bumped up to a level 1 priority. We were going to use ARPA funds for the roof replacement, and we bumped that back into the capital cycle when we took on the emergency repair of the Armstrong roof, which had failed. So Garland, the roof consultants who do the engineering and support work on this, had given us a $2,400,000 cost estimate for the current, well, it was last year when we submitted it for capital. The current cost, accounting for inflation at $45 per square foot, is now $3,600,000. The HVAC project voted funds from 2 previous warrant articles. The cost escalation required that we return and seek more funding. And the articles of discussion are around expanding the scope of these articles to allow us to move forward with design work for the ADA so we can get bid in hand documents to know the true cost of completing all of the ADA work. We certainly know that rough order of magnitude drawings, estimates, and really biddable documents, the gaps in those dollars have been shocking all of us. So really what we want to do at this point is move forward to complete the ADA design, the HVAC design, which is partially completed and needs to, in order to give us a lot of the estimates we've used, needs to be completed. And we had an enthralling discussion around a couple other pieces of design that we might want to accomplish so that we have bid documents in hand by Springtown meeting. The escalation for all of this led to the triggers that kind of surfaced the ADA. There was some really good discussion with Fred, the building commissioner, regarding what constitutes repairs versus improvements and what rolls into your total cost estimates. We kind of went through a circle of conversation related to that, asking if something was considered a repair, would it perhaps then not trigger the need to go ahead and do the ADA work? But given that the numbers are so big, you keep tripping into the same problem as you try to accomplish the work because the cost escalations are just so high and you can't, I mean, when Fred looked at it, we kind of came to some of that same conclusion. Even if you classify them not as improvements but repairs, you still keep triggering through design and other work costs that lead to needing to do the ADA. So this means that we're here because is seeking the expansion of scope to complete the ADA work because it becomes the primary completion focus in order for us to figure out where we are. In the document I gave you just a brief summary of the cost expenditures to date that have taken place, and some of those will start to fall away, but not at a rate of cost or quickly enough that we don't still trip the code when we look at the numbers we're dealing with. So the ADA MBA code requirements have been closely reviewed by the architects working on the project with us through GGD. The town building inspector also had hired commissioner, sorry, I call him an inspector there, I should fix that. The town completed comprehensive accessibility reviews, and that document's attached for you. It's like 600 pages of light reading of compliance tripped things that you have to consider. And then the GGD team did a crosswalk for us for the ADA pieces, and then developed the cost estimates that we provided in kind of earlier discussions. Additionally, windows were asked about, kind of like what are all additional costs. And when we look at the current estimate of total number of windows against current cost estimates to do the windows, we're thinking right now in a rough order of magnitude is roughly $500,000. So just kind of putting all the numbers out there for people, which is, I think, what has been asked. So when we look at fund and expenditures, one of the questions that the select board wanted to know and understand is what's been spent and what's really available and what could we get for it and what are we asking for with this article. So you see roughly there that the expenses to date are $233,715, a variety of the design and consultation services and work in rough order of magnitude drawings that have like scaffolded this conversation. Those are those cost expenditures. And then you see kind of that taken out of the totals, looking at the basically $4,600,000 available. And the design percentage cost is roughly $500,000. And then the rough order of magnitude they gave us, and I attached that, that's GGD's most recent updated cost estimate is in one of the attachments, is, escalating towards $4 million at $3,650,000. I automatically escalate the cost every time I talk about it because I just feel like, yeah, and when I see a biddable document, what would that look like? However, sometimes when you go out to bid, you do get advantageous returns. And I do feel like in our Armstrong roof estimate was kind of spot on and came in really close because I think the industry is beginning to escalate their numbers to match what they know against the escalation costs. Like even when they say like the inflation, they've moved to using 15%. And so I feel like they're more realistic estimates for us. So in summary, we're seeking to expand the scope of the current article to allow us to begin to complete the design scope and produce the biddable documents with a real number to go out to bid and establish the true cost of each of the component pieces for HVAC and the ADA work. And so again, the HVAC work's already inclusive in the voted spec. I mean, we just want to be clear that within the money that's available, we want to make sure we complete the HVAC design for biddable documents, and it would ride along with the ADA biddable documents such that we have very concrete numbers by March town meeting. But without the expansion of the scope, we can't do the ADA work on this particular article as it's currently written. So I know it's a lot to take in. I tried to put it into the document in a way that you can kind of circle through that. And Steve and I are probably, again, very happy to talk in depth about any parts of it. And I guess I would open it up for discussion.
Walter?
Okay, so just to get me unlost a little bit, I understand that this amount would cover the design work for HVAC and ADA. What is the roof and windows a separate thing? Is the roof design separate?
No, right. We can untangle that as we go. So currently, the articles that the original design of both of those articles was to basically do the design and biddable drawings, and to complete the HVAC was in that total package. And we had engineering-based estimates based upon the work they had done, but we hadn't gone all the way to biddable documents for the HVAC. And we would have continued on that track if we hadn't circled into the issue of the ADA and wanted to stop and get the design for that done as well. It then does not pick up, if you look at the scope of what these numbers look like, I anticipate that we would complete the design for the HVAC, the ADA, and come back with the bid. And And then you'd have money remaining there to do some of that work, and you would know what your real gaps were based upon bids in hand. So from that standpoint, that would bring us to town meeting with the remaining dollars of this article then against the gaps. You would still, and I would imagine that originally in that rough order of magnitude, we thought we could do a fair amount of the ADA work in what's remaining there. But you would then need to vote money for the actual HVAC and the roof, which would then be missing. And when we looked at the dollars in that in the discussions, you basically got a current escalation of cost on the HVAC to be 5.2 million and the roofs at 3.6 million. So they've really escalated those cost estimates. And so we would hope that actually when you go out to bid, potentially you come in more advantageously, not less, which has happened in futures that or pasts we haven't seen in a while.
I have a question. I'm still confused. So the HVAC is one set of work.
Yep.
The ADA is a separate set of work.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's why we wanted to come back and clarify the scope.
If I could clarify, the problem we have is that we actually have to do the ADA first before we can do anything else.
Right.
And the reason why is because of the Mass General Laws 521 requires that, in fact, before we go ahead, that the building department has to be able to certify that, in fact, we're ADA approved. And so, in effect, in reality, you do the one first. If we had town meeting vote for both of them in terms of the total construction cost, then they would be done together. But the trigger for all these things, it has been, and we've been, if you will, dancing around this ADA question ever since we started work at Hastings for all of it. And in fact, this other discussion about the 30% rule, if you will, that triggers ADA, we've been dodging that now. But the numbers, as Amber said, are so large now that they become the trigger for the next requirement to do ADA. So at this point, I guess I would say that if you read Fred's memo, you really come up with the fact that this bullet can't be dodged anymore. Hopefully that answers your question.
Actually, I don't know that I was here during the new construction. Hastings is the one by McDonald's, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you did that huge addition, why wouldn't the ADA have been?
Because it wasn't,
didn't touch the
an
building.
addition, it was a separate building.
Right, so actually we purposely with that design separated the building, so it's like a sister school. It doesn't, those roofs don't touch, so we didn't trigger the code of the full interior. If we had at the time, if the 12.5 million had been all in, it would have. So one of the reasons which would have been even a bigger number, so we separated them. So we basically then did, like, I think if you look at the document,
75,000.
we did 1,356,400 interior of Hastings, and it didn't trigger the ADA.
Under the same rules.
Right. So we basically came into Hastings and did a minimal amount inside Hastings, with the main goal being to create new viable classroom space by like building the preschool wing. But it allowed us in separating it to a causeway to not touch the building.
It feels like a kick the can, like it could have been addressed then.
Yeah, no, I think.
And then it probably could have been addressed at a cheaper cost.
Yeah, yeah.
Since, the big number was in front of the town at the time anyway.
Yeah.
ADA's been around for a very long time. So it seems like now, it's just, the cost has escalated because we.
Right. Well, that's one perspective, and I don't disagree that those are all decisions that were made along the way, kind of shared by all of our boards. But one of the other pieces of that was that it was a package of enrollment expansion, because we also then were in trajectory with the MSBA for fails, and that number we knew was going to be big. And we're taking the modulars out at Armstrong and picking up scope there. So we did all of them as a package of basically touching those buildings to expand their enrollment capacity with the current footprint of the district we had. And, those were decisions that all had trade-offs at the different time, and decisions were made to try to, as the biddable drawings came in, to try to manage the cost of each, so that the total package of responding to enrollment didn't overwhelm us. And it was overwhelming enough, and certainly those numbers have been big. But I think when, in 2015, we were really already well behind in the trajectory of catching up on our enrollment. So we did an escalation of process to kind of move as quickly as we could.
Melanie, I just want to say that to the school board's account, they definitely presented the full package of numbers, but then they said, here's how we can save now because of what we foresee coming up right then and there. So they knew that this was definitely, the finance committee, I want to say probably everybody was in on kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, and I guess I would point out for the benefit of everybody, the failed school, the replacement school, is roughly the same size as Hastings. It will cost $56 million. So even with the repairs that we've done so far and what we're talking about to bring the building up to code is nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. And that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing.
And I think, that's why I tried to codify it in the document by just putting the historical perspective there, because we actually made another key decision, and that was shared. It wasn't our recommendation, but we were participants in accepting it, which was withdrawing from accepting $9 million from the state and having done that complete repair of the roof, windows, and doors at Hastings back in 2018. But at that time, the three boards came together and wanted to do the debt process of remaining at 7% and asked us to withdraw that project because it popped us over the 7%. And so we accepted that in collaboration with the other boards. We had done all the work, had been accepted, and were in trajectory to submit that for starting the project when we withdrew from that funding. So, again, we recognize that we're part of a whole town, and we've tried to work on all of these as collaboratively as possible. But they have costs, and the escalations now, yes, are huge.
At the time, I don't think anybody predicted the escalation that we're in right now, but to do the whole project that was originally presented, taking the $9 million would have triggered the ADA, which wasn't part of the plan at the time.
Yeah, it's hard to look at numbers at any time, and in 2018, those numbers were just as staggering as they are now proportionally.
No, but ADA has been around for
I think the other piece of the ADA story is that we were presented middle of last year, about middle of last year, July of last year, with a 630-page report that was requested by the town manager and under the auspices of the building commissioner. That's what's now included in the ADA numbers, are all the items in that 600 and something page report, which I believe is attached to this, and you can read it.
Yeah, ADA has been around forever. Again, those were decisions we made working collaboratively with all the boards, looking at what the cost impacts of ADA would be, recognizing it for what it is. So, we're big fans of sprinkler systems, ADA compliance, but it's all about means and capacity, and in collaboration, the decision was to gain what we needed for floor space to make advantageous gains in repairs and manage costs, which was the call from all of our committees. Andrew.
So an observation and then a two-part question. The observation is this is a lot to talk about, and good luck at the town meeting, because it's a lot of this is going to go over folks' heads. So I wish you luck in terms of finding the right way to package this in a way that is digestible by that group. So the two-part question, if I'm reading this correctly, the Article 30 isn't new money. It's really just a reallocation. It's a request to try and move things around, right?
Correct.
It's a request to expand the scope to allow the design work for the ADA in order to keep us moving forward. Because we can't access any of the funds to do additional work on the HVAC until we figure out where we are with the ADA.
Correct. But when all is said and done, there's no new spending.
Not right now.
30. It's really, and I don't think that's entirely clear, because that's good to hear. I guess the second part of the question, though, is you did a phenomenal job laying out the previous articles that got to this. And an article is an approval to get something. Sometimes that something is a new roof. Sometimes that's something as a design package. Could you help me understand what we had just in aggregate? Did we lose anything as a result of the change in scope in Article 30? Are we losing anything that we thought we were going to get delivered because we're reallocating
Sure,
these funds?
definitely, because money is money.
Yeah.
So when you expand the scope to include additional work, you're going to lose the benefits of the total package like that. Those two articles voted were to finish the design, bid, build, and construct and complete the HVAC work. And so we can't do any of that until we figure out the ADA. So the money is sitting there and it's just losing value while we try to figure out what to do. So yes, the funds we expend against the ADA, which has to be done first, will basically then defer to a request for the HVAC money being what you would then come back with your bid documents.
So the last step of this will be the request that now comes for the, not ADA, but accessibility design, or the accessibility stuff, plus the cost of the HVAC.
Yeah, if you look at the total of the article, I mean, if you look at the total of the article, there will be money left after we complete the design work.
Yep.
And the conversation that we had across the street was that they want to focus on the initial scope being to complete the design documents for the ABA or the ADA, and the final drawings and scope and bid for the HVAC, so we know the cost of those. They also, if it involves roof work, want to make sure we fold in the part of the component that would relate to HVAC, and they also asked us to include the windows, so that you basically have all biddable documents for the scope of that work in terms of design, and then be able to see what's remaining in this article and know then what your true gap is.
One of the reasons why this is structured the way it is, the Board of Selectmen initially said, we want to know how much it's going to cost to do everything you need to do at Hastings, and that's the way it's structured. The second part is this article, its intent is to get us to the point where we have biddable drawings and we will go out to bid for the annual town meeting and present to the town what do we think the cost is going to be for three pieces. And the third piece now is the windows, as requested by the Board of Selectmen be included, so that we come to the town meeting with bids in hand that we know what each one of these scopes will cost for the town to decide. And in fact, out of all this stuff, out of all these years, we got half the design done for $230,000 for the HVAC. So, you know, in a manner of speaking, we haven't wasted anything. We're at the point now where we've, in effect, delayed the work by virtue of running into a part of the economy of the United States such that it's killing us. And the longer we wait during this period of time to execute this, since these projects aren't going to go away, if we can finish this stuff in the near term, we will avoid whatever the future escalation is. And as I said, if the thought was, well, we should have knocked the damn building down in the first place and started over, that isn't a solution today either. This is a very good building. I'm sorry, Beth.
Beth?
Yeah, so I have a question. You know, we've postponed and pushed the ADA work down the road quite a ways. And when we actually do all of this ADA work, do we get to reset the can so that we have, you know, we have a period of time because we've caught ourselves up, that we then get to continue fixing the building and maintaining it before we have to readdress the new ADA that comes in over time, because I'm sure that there's always going to be a new next.
Yeah, no, it would reset the clock and then allow us to basically work within the building. The next set of codes would be grandfathered until we did another, you know, major thing. And I don't think the scope we're looking at is most currently voted. It's not like they update it every day. I mean, that, you know, it's cumbersome enough, so they want to make sure that it's, you know, pretty comprehensive.
We asked the architect to include a detailed review of the 637-page report so that, in fact, we wouldn't run into this again, that we wouldn't do half of it and then find we had a problem later.
Right. I mean, I guess that's really the question is like, you know, how much breathing room do you think you get once you take care of the current ADA that you kind of have to do? I mean, we'd like our buildings safe and everything and accessible. But, you know, it's like, where's your,
I
who
think the
knows?
real answer to that question is we're reacting to Mass General Law 521. If it changes, then we have to look at the change and see whether we can dodge that bullet, ask for a waiver, or have to do it. But
Okay.
at this point, you know, this building is as was, and all of this stuff came in afterwards. So the thought is that the scope of work we're going to do now brings it up to code now. It could change in the future, but it's not likely because once we do these projects, we're done, you know, for 20 years, 30 years,
Okay.
I hope.
Andrew?
So I've been with the school and watched enough of the work happen so that I know you guys are enormously conscious of how the spending is done. And the school has been masterful amongst all other groups in this town about saying, okay, we had some money here, let's combine them here, move things around. And I think a couple of years ago, the town said,
No.
I think that's too confusing for people. I think the way to do it is to close and reopen. And I think in that spirit, what I think clarifies this in my mind for me is this article is sort of the pause that refreshes. It is going to be say, readjust scope. We're going to come up with a new cost of everything going forward. And instead of saying some of that will be part of this, just say, look, this will be a smaller ask to cover what we know we need to do. The ask has been to get drawings, and that's what we're going to do. The Article 30 in my mind is clearer. If the goal is to get to take all this money, put it together, we're going to come up with estimates because that's what the goal is. Next step is next town meeting, we will know what that cost will be, and that becomes the new look at a borrow.
Sure.
And again, I have so much respect, having been in the weeds for this, that I know how these move around. But this just comes off as very confusing when I think that there's a way to close it and open it in
Yeah,
a
I
way
think
that's cleaner.
I don't disagree that we'll work to streamline the presentation. I mean, you know, the scope, it basically is expand the scope to allow the ADA design so that we can keep moving forward. The allowable costs already voted in the articles for all the HVAC is already in place, so we're just going to continue that. And getting the rough order of cost of the design and at the same time an estimate for you within that for
We have to stop
anticipated.
using the word rough order of magnitude.
Yeah,
What we're trying to do is get the real cost for each one of these.
Right.
And I guess to answer the inflation, if the article's voted and we do the engineering, it doesn't matter what the date on those drawings are going to be. They're useful next time if we didn't do it this time. They won't change. There will be no escalation on that engineering. We then have nailed down that cost. And that's the whole point of this. Mm-hmm. We don't want a rough order of magnitude because that's why we've been here 5 times over this period of time. We want the real cost for the town meeting to say yes or no. And this is how we get there. Just that simple.
Okay, just to clarify now in my mind, because I think it's a little different than what Andrew just said. It looks to me like we're changing this to spend $438,000 for design of this MAAB ADA, but also to do the work, $3.6 million to actually implement.
That's not what I'm saying, okay? Because to be honest, we can't do any of that until we go to bid. All we can do is finish the design for
So this chart isn't what we're doing?
No, it's just how you read it. Okay, if we wanted to use the excess money to build the ADA, you'd have to authorize that. This article is
So what are
moot.
we asking for
So
then?
is
We're
that
just
the-
asking
What
to
we're
spend-
asking for is to be able to use the article that already exists for Hastings, HVAC, to allow it to include doing the engineering for the ADA. So if you want to really know what the monies are, roughly the 12% on the ADA, you apply that to 5.2 million on the HVAC, we're talking roughly total cost for engineering for it, somewhere in the order of $500,000. So then the articles has authorized it, whatever it was, 4 million plus, less the $1 million now that would be consumed by the engineering. There's no new money being asked for here. And that remainder is up to the town meeting to decide when we come in with bids for ADA and for the HVAC. I mean, that's how simple this is.
Okay.
And all this other stuff based on the request of the Board of Selectmen to tell you what's it really going to cost for Hastings, all in, 5, 10 years from now, that's how it got complicated.
And Walter, that was the same discussion we had across the street, was that when they wrote the expansion of scope, when I talked about it with Christy, she built it that it was allowable, that if we got bid documents and we could continue with the ADA, we could leverage it. They would prefer to direct the motion that we complete the design and bring back a hard number. So that was exactly where they were, and they voted support for exactly as Steve's delineated, which is by March town meeting that we have a hard number. So that there's not a lack of clarity, like, wait, we voted you could finish that ADA stuff and there's still a gap. And so his clear delineation of the fact that the work would be to get the design completed on all the remaining components, which would then be clear and be able to bid those and have hard numbers. So he's exactly right.
So this was written before that scope, the scope of the scope change.
Yeah.
So that's why I said that, but
Yeah, you read it correctly. I just want to give you credit for reading it correctly. You did. You interpreted it exactly accurately.
Do you have a star
I
for
think
him?
you answered
He
the
gets a-
question.
he gets an
It was
A.
about the change in scope since the warrant was written, but that would include then including the design cost for the windows, is that correct? As well? So that's what's going to change,
Yeah.
or that's what you hope to change at
Right.
town meeting?
Well, it would still fit, because if you use the same thing I just explained on the 438.
No, I understand the money fits. I'm just,
Yeah.
that's what you were talking
Yeah.
about changing at town
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The article would be specific to the discussion we just had, which is what's the purpose of this scope change?
Because when we right.
And you're planning on making the motion that the select board suggested?
Yes.
Because should we be voting?
It's going to be highly suggested to the school committee that's the motion that we will ask for.
Okay, so
having
I want to wait to.
Well, having left the discussion with them and they wanted to tighten the expansion of scope, like we proposed we proposed it. They would like to clarify it to be for all the design work. And that's where we left it, and we didn't disagree. Steve agrees, and I don't disagree. It's just, and so we would carry it, and we said, we're going to come across and talk to you. And then, again, reminding everyone we're not looking for new money. We want to just keep unraveling being stuck, and we need design to do that. So, and then school committee I would probably leave here. I would imagine tomorrow I would work on a draft of, any language, like what they need to do for school committee to understand what they would be accepting as well, so that the motion would be clear.
Does the school
Yeah, the
committee
article
meet
stays
this
as
week?
written, but the motion will be what is acceptable to the boards, which
Right.
at this point is what the selectmen recommended.
But you guys meet Wednesday
Thursday this week,
Rosh Hashanah.
because Rosh Hashanah. Yeah. I think you had a question.
So we may vote this at town meeting when we know what
may
the
have to.
motion is.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
look,
fine.
we as a committee have to make a recommendation.
Sure.
Right,
And we want to make sure we're well informed.
right.
And we can't make a decision with half the information, which means that we need to know what that motion
Yeah,
is going to
I
be.
agree.
And you said that the select board did what tonight?
They voted,
They voted to support it as we discussed the way it would work.
yeah,
Okay, but they're in the same boat you are. Until they see the motion, they're not going to make a recommendation at town meeting. So it behooves the school committee to create the motion as we wish to have it presented to the Board of Selectmen and to the Finance Committee.
Rod?
Thank you for summarizing a very confusing bit of documents. The one thing I didn't see here, and I haven't looked that carefully, but if you add up all the projects, do we have a total cost? In other words, if you have the HVAC, the roofing, the ADA, the windows, the design? Is there a total number that we would anticipate based on?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, I feel like that's in the circle of discussion, which is, I feel like we just create confusion if we're using rough order of magnitude, like we need to have.
You have the bid
bids.
numbers, you don't know. But,
in rough order of magnitude, you're looking at like 13 million.
yeah. So, as compared to the 56, it fails, it's a good deal. Okay? But the question is it something you walk away from? Ultimately, no matter what we all do here, it's up to the town meeting to decide whether they can afford it.
So
What was that 13 million?
All the total remaining projects.
Projects, okay.
Right. At the current rough order of magnitude escalation, the 5.2, like all of the pieces.
And the windows?
And the windows, yeah, thank you.
Rod, sorry.
So the other question I had was, where did the assessment number come from that we're
The
trying to?
assessor.
So he's updated it from the 7 million of a few years ago to the 20 million now? Okay.
Yeah.
At least that's my belief. I'm pretty sure that's where it came from.
Irene provided that number, and then it came from HMFH, and confirmation as part of the whole original cycle of updates.
Then this is more a curiosity, but the way I looked at the documents earlier, you had an ADA MAB report done for you that was subsequently redone by the town. I'm just curious why we ended up, you had a very nice 10-page report, and now we have a 600-page report.
Well, we had the 600-page report, and then the architect that we hired as part of the HVAC system was asked to analyze it, and that's the summary of the 14 pages. I think that's correct, isn't it?
Well, they were done in parallel, you're right. I mean, I think because when the town did theirs, they wanted to do it inclusive of all of their public buildings. So they recaptured Hastings in that mix, was part of their bid, and so they went ahead and completed it. And I think, again, felt that it would be confirming of kind of the same, they even did the new preschool. They did them all. They just wanted to pick them all up. So, yeah, there is an overlap there.
I mean, I think, and the strategy of trying to dole it out over a certain number of years is not altogether a bad idea. When you look at spending $4 million on accessibility on a school that's worth $20 million, that's 20% of the worth of the school. And, it's for, I'm all for ADA and that, but some of the stuff is, you would never take an old school and do some of the things that they're trying to do on a project like this. So that's
The only thing I can say about that is until the ADA is satisfied, we can't do anything else.
we can do it concurrently.
No, you can't, because what the rules are, and you got to read Fred's summary of this. And I'm paraphrasing, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. But what I got out of the memo was each year you have a $500,000 freebie. And then you compare whatever your total costs are for the upgrade as part of the 30% value of the real estate, of the value of the project. And so if you trigger, and you can't remove any of the previous costs for upgrades for a period of 3 years, which is why that part of the table was there. So every time you add a project, it adds to the total value of the project, and then you take 30% of that, and that's part of the criteria. So when we do 2 in a row, let's say, within 3 years, the only way you get by with this, of course, is from the scenario you're saying is, well, we have to wait 3 years, and then we have to look at what that total value is.
Well,
And when we do look at that total value, can we do the next project or not?
And some classify as repairs, so they don't add to the value, and so trust me, I feel like.
No, they add to the value of the real estate.
I didn't think they did, but I thought Fred's memo, sorry, I won't.
You got to
I'm
read
not-
his memo
I'll
because
read
it's
it
damn
again.
complicated.
Right, so regardless, well,
It's
regardless.
complicated, it's the answer. So
It is.
I just had one last
Heard
question.
that one before, I guess.
Yeah, so this is just a general question, but the roof engineering is being done by a roof manufacturer?
Yes, as was done with Armstrong.
Yeah,
In other words, they're supplying the details for a roof. I mean, let's face it, a roof is pretty simple in the sense that it's a membrane, but you need the details, you need the spec to be able to contain the contractor within that scope of work. And that's the role that Garland has played in the past. By assembling the various specifications for roofing that come from ASTM and other places, so that in fact we have a document that's biddable and given to the bidder to say, okay, this is what we're now bound to build. It's a much simpler way to deal with roofs, and it's allowed under the Commonwealth Board.
My only concern is the manufacturer is getting reimbursed by selling their roof product.
Well, yeah, by selling their product, no doubt.
So my recommendation, coming from me, from the Finances Committee, is I think we should have an OPM involved in this project, and we should have somebody overseeing all the projects all together, and not rely on a roof manufacturer to do the spec for those.
Well, they only would apply for the roof, not for the roofing, I should say.
No, I understand.
The rest of the design is under that system you just suggested.
I mean, I think, again, like having done, obviously, everybody doing a fair amount of these projects, you just escalate the cost. And I understand their trade-offs, and, you know, I mean, I've been on a building committee since I got here, Gibbons, and then onto the pre-K3, and that's all we've done is build. So I certainly have gained a composite of general skill, but the cost escalations of these people pay themselves is gigantic. So, you know, those are trade-offs, I would agree. I mean, you know, and so as we move forward in the project, those are decisions we make and try to manage costs. So.
Go ahead, Jane.
I just had a question about the windows to come back to. The memo talks about them eventually needing to be upgraded. I know I heard you say that, you know, the scoping would be valid now and in the future. How far off do you think those window replacements might be? And,
Well,
you know, will window technology change so that that design
first of all, they would
isn't-
have to meet the building code standard.
I'm sorry?
They would have to meet the building code standard, because many of the windows at Hastings are single-pane windows.
Yeah.
So the building code would require them to be at least double-pane, high-energy efficient windows. So that's number one. And yeah, could there be something new that comes along? In which case, the drawings would show what you needed to do, but the specification would specify what it is you do it with. So, I mean, that's a simple upgrade. Let's say we did this, we had the package ready to go, and the town, for whatever reason, chose not to do it for 5 years. At that point, we would probably ask to have all that stuff reviewed, make sure that it was up to snuff as far as the current code goes, and then go out to bid again.
Oh. And do you have a sense of when those windows will need to be replaced?
Well, they come up as part of the discussion at the selectmen's meeting, in the sense that the HVAC system is putting the unit ventilators on the roof rather than these things that are on the sidewall. And so because they penetrate the wall, that hole has to be bricked up. And the argument was, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well do the windows at the same time and have economy of scale. And to get the package for 40 grand is probably worth doing it, just to find out what it's going to cost us to get new windows.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the logic behind the request.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, because it wasn't clear why the windows
Yeah,
were
I mean, in the
included.
window discussion, we threw in the general cost target because people wanted to kind of like put all the numbers out there. But the other part was, as we talked about it, related to specifically the windows and the design of pulling the HVACs. So once you get design for it, you could break it out over time if you had to. Again, it depends on if it's more advantageous to do all of them at once and get one package of work. And so it, you know, it varies. So you could repair just the ones where the HVAC fall and then do all the others 3 years later, like who knows. But until you actually do the design, which was the part of what their discussion focused on, which is get all your design work done on the component pieces so we know what we're dealing with.
Just one comment. When you pass the threshold over the 30%, it kicks in not just ADA, but mass energy, as well as seismic. So my recommendation would be to take the whole lump of projects into one project, because in reality, the windows or the insulation from the roof will help determine the size of your HVAC system. So they're all kind of interrelated.
Well, they're all driven by code, so. Problem is, you and I can make a decision in our house what we want to do, whether we want to do a lot or a little. In municipal work, it has to be according to code, whatever that requirement is.
Any other questions?
So your discussion follows the trajectory and range of discussion that we had across the street. And I think they felt that, we would take it back to school committee and say that there was support for the recommendation to have the expansion of scope complete, finishing all the design drawings of the various pieces, and have that available for town meeting in March. And so if there's a motion draft that allows everybody to see the composite of what that would be, we would do it and have it ready quickly.
Personally, I'm not prepared to do that tonight, but I'll leave it to the other members of the committee if they'd like to go in that direction.
I'm not asking you to. Please don't feel pressed by me. I'm just letting you know where we summarized, and I'm comfortable, letting you follow the trajectory of the discussion.
I'd like to let what I've heard tonight, and I'm sure my colleagues would percolate a little bit and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
The point that Rod made about an OPM, considering what's gone on in this project since it was put into inception way back when, it looks like a good OPM would have been the right call.
I'm going to disagree because the magnitude of the project, the OPM and the project manager.
I'm sorry, you got to speak up a little bit.
I don't necessarily think for the size of what we're talking about that it's worth the money for an OPM on top of everything else. I think it's possible to manage this project as we have for many school articles while I've been on the school committee for about 19 years now. This is the only one that got into this problem, and it's because we didn't come to the town with a biddable project and a price tag that, in fact, the town could choose to do. What it's been is ROMs, rough order magnitudes, which when you finally get to them, you get another rough order magnitude 2 years later, it's bigger. Why? Because of inflation.
Well, our disagreement's on record, Steve.
Oh, that's
How's
fine.
that?
And, and ultimately, we'll do it the way the town meeting tells us, and that's the answer.
But we know, and I don't want to belabor this because we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We know that the town meeting acts based on the information that's presented to them, and the way that information is presented is critical for their understanding.
Right.
So
I just want to add that this was a request of the finance board a number of years ago not to come to town meeting with rough order of magnitude.
Well, we're doing that with the library right now, so what's that to say?
It was to bring to the town meeting a bid that, in fact, the town could execute and know what its cost was going to be. And it was a mistake on this one, that we didn't do that.
anybody else?
Amber, I just want to clarify, the new building at Hastings is completely ADA compliant, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. And again, I don't think that we all recognize the complications of this project, and some of it is triggered by the decisions to move certain pieces and to separate them and to try to move forward thoughtfully financially in the package of the town's work, and the cost escalation of roofs and other things. Like, all of the pieces of this project have been called out along the way, and yet, thoughtfully, we've been bumping them around as part of our capital planning, not just by ourselves, I might add, but with collaboration from everyone. And I don't think that in general, the information we've brought has been inaccurate or misleading. It's just that once we stalled one piece, you also then get into a trajectory of having backed ourselves into a corner. And I think you've made fine decisions and fine votes. I think what we've brought forward has been clear in the time of town meeting. I think the cost escalations and separating pieces of the project, which seemed fiscally smart at the time, have caused us to be kind of stuck in a loop. So again, I think if you look at the fact that we've done many projects, this is the one we're looking at where there's really complexity that we're trying to finalize.
And yet we're here. So it's the art of unintended consequences, I
Yeah,
guess.
shared, I would say.
As good as everybody, as good as the intentions were, we have now arrived at this point.
Yeah.
So now we have to get it back on track,
Yes,
if we can, if it's affordable.
right.
Do we have any idea of how long it would actually take to do all of the work once you get to that point?
Well, ultimately, we've talked about what the order of magnitude of the total cost to do all these projects will be. If the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee and ultimately the wish of the school committee to do it all at once, then it could all be one package for 13 million plus or
Would that be a
minus.
summer package, or would that be
But
a
they
school
still,
year?
excuse me, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Would that be a summer package, or would that be a school year plus 2 summers?
Well, they would have to, we occupy the building, so, I
Right.
mean, the complexity of, and we haven't even added that to the discussion today, but the complexity of the school building cycle, or these tight summer cycles where you're paying a premium, and the complexity of everybody and their availability and everything is complicated. And so you're also then, in occupied spaces. So automatically the work falls on summer cycles, as we've done everything, and vacation cycles. So all of that, yes, it's 2 years worth of work probably, if we're advantageous in like stacking the bids and getting the work and keeping things moving. So, right now we just can't do anything,
Right.
so.
Anybody else? Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Appreciate
you
you
very
taking the
much.
time. No, it's been a long night.
For all of us, I mean, it's,
On something else. So, yeah,
all right,
thank you
thank
all.
you
Thanks
very
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
I'm going to read that report. That'll be your nighttime reading. 14 pages. You'll be asleep by the first one.
605?
Thank you.
And we have to do the minutes, too.
Yeah. Let's do the minutes now. So look, there's a couple of articles that we could get through very quickly. I'm sorry, what?
Just stepping out.
Okay, I'm going to do the minutes, Beth, right now, since you were away. Yes, okay. All right, so can I have a motion we have to look at the minutes of September 15th and the 19th. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 15th?
So moved?
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, well, we've got to go through and Beth just walked out the door.
Beth abstained.
Beth abstained. Melanie?
For both? I'm
No,
going to
the-
abstain because I was absent one of the meetings.
Okay, Andrew?
Bradley, yes.
I'm abstaining on the 15th. I was not present.
Okay,
This is why we tend to break them apart in individual.
Yes.
Yes.
Man, yes.
Yes. Schaffer, yes.
Zephyr? You're muted.
Zephyr, mute.
I was absent in one of the meetings, so are we doing the two together?
No, we're doing the 15th.
15th, I was, yes.
Moretti, yes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the minutes of, what do we got, 603?
19.
The 19th. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Bradley, so moved.
Second?
Second?
I have a second. Beth has abstained, I guess?
Yep.
Okay, Melanie?
Abstain.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Schaffer, yes.
Zephyr?
Abstain.
Moretti, yes.
He abstained.
You abstained. Okay, very good. 603.
Okay.
Done.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, before we get into are there any liaison reports? Hearing none, we're moving on. So the next article for consideration is Article 9. We had an explanation from the town manager. Are you ready to vote on this article without further discussion?
Assabet Valley.
Yes, sorry.
Clarification.
Assabet Valley Regional Technical School Budget Adjustment.
Are we skipping 8?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
'cause
did.
we don't
We
have
did
a
that
number.
before our guest came
Sorry.
in. Yeah, it's all right. It's okay.
We don't have an amount yet.
Yeah.
Do we want to wait for Beth?
We could wait to vote, but could we go through some others? See
Yeah,
if there's
we can.
questions?
Yeah, we can. Let's do that. Good idea. Article 10 is fiscal year 23 cable TV budget adjustment. Are we prepared to vote on that article without further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Sounds
Okay.
fine.
Article 11 is the server room cooling equipment replacement proposed by Information Technology. Are we ready to vote on this article without further discussion?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Article 12, ambulance replacement for the fire department. Are we ready to proceed with a vote on this article without further discussion?
I'd like further discussion.
Okay, Rod would like further discussion.
Okay.
So we'll push that into abeyance for now. Article 13, the catch basin cleaner attachment requested by the Public Works Department. Are we ready to proceed with a vote on that without further discussion?
I'd like further discussion.
Okay. Article 14, the water system improvements requested by the DPW. Are we prepared to vote on this article without further discussion?
I'd like further discussion.
Okay.
14? And just if we're ready to vote on it tonight, but we're not voting yet.
Article 15 and Article 16, we're going to discuss on Thursday. Article 17, the lead services line inventory and replacement plan proposed by the DPW. Are we prepared to vote on that without further discussion?
Yes.
We are. Article 18,
I'd like further discussion.
on the acquisition of Zero Ruggles, okay. Article 19, to rescind the borrowing authorization requested by the Select Board for the two articles that were passed at the 2022 annual town meeting. Are we prepared to vote on that without further discussion? We are. Article 20, we agreed would hold until Thursday. Article 21, report of the town seal committee. I would like further discussion on this article.
On the hearing, the report?
Well, 21, 22, they're all sequenced. We could, yes, we could vote on accepting the report, but, okay, so are we ready to vote on Article 21 without further discussion?
I thought you just said you wanted to vote.
Oh, no, no, no,
20,
no.
22.
I was confused on 21. My apologies. It's just accepting the report.
That's just letting them talk at the meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we are. Article 22 and 23, I'd like further discussion on. Article 24, acceptance of the Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 33B, requested by the Select Board relative to local licensing authority for alcoholic beverages. Are we prepared to vote on that without further discussion? We are.
Yeah.
Article 25, Economic Development Revolving Account, requested by the Economic Development Committee. Are we prepared to vote on that without further discussion?
Yeah.
We are. Article 26, the Home Rule Petition proposed by the Senior Tax Relief Committee. Are we prepared to vote on that article without further discussion? It appears that we are. Article 27, sorry, a lot of pages here. Grant of a utility easement for 123 Fisher Street, proposed by the Select Board. Are we prepared to vote on that article without further discussion? It appears we are. Article 28, handicap parking fines, proposed by the Commission on Disability. Are we prepared to vote on that article without further discussion? We are. Article 29 and 30, we've agreed we would hold until at least Thursday. Okay, so Walter, can you sum up?
Oh, okay, so we're going to vote on 9, 10, 11, 17, 19,
19.
14, I thought was a hold.
It's a discussion. Someone asked for discussion.
We're waiting.
14 is, I thought it was a, did somebody request a hold? Yeah, Rob requested a
Right,
hold on that.
okay,
Discussion.
Yeah,
I'll start again. 9, 10, 11, 17, 19, 21, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
okay, here we go.
And if I'm reading one and you wanted it to wait, just let us know. Okay, so
Okay.
9,
9, fiscal year 23, Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School budget adjustment.
I move we recommend the town votes in favor of Article 9 to raise and appropriate $8,781 in addition to the fiscal 2023 Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School budget.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Sorry, Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Siddiq, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Uh-oh.
Technical question. Can we do more than one at a time?
No, because
Yeah,
you might
no.
want to vote no on
Yeah.
one.
Just checking.
You could, but then you
Yeah,
Can you
kinda
speed
screw
read?
things- Okay.
okay. Article 10,
Motion. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 10 to raise and appropriate $50,000 in addition to the FY 2023 cable TV budget.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Beth?
Siddiq, yes.
Moretti, yes. Article 11,
Hold on a second.
okay.
I got a little, yes, 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 yes. Happens when you read the motion. Okay.
Okay, Article 11,
Okay. I move we recommend the town votes in favor of Article 11 to transfer $10,500 from free cash for the purpose of replacing server room cooling equipment.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Siddiq, yes.
Moretti, yes.
900.
Okay, ambulance bid number 12 is a hold.
On to number
17. Article 17,
lead line service. Okay, I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 17 to appropriate $100,000 to pay costs of developing a lead service line inventory and lead service line replacement plan as written in the warrant.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Siddiq, yes.
Moretti, yes.
I know. Oh, on to number 19. Rescind borrow authorization. I move we recommend the town meeting votes. I recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 19 to rescind prior year's unused borrowing authorizations as written in the warrant.
Second?
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Stafford, yes.
Siddiq, yes.
Moretti, yes. Article
20.
21.
21. Got it, yep.
Yep, 21. Motion?
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 21 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes.
Oh, okay, number 24.
Article 24. Motion?
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 24 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes.
I know, okay.
Article 25.
EDC. Article 25. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 25 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes. Article 26. Motion?
I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 26 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, abstain.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes.
801.
Article 27. Motion?
27, utility easement. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 27 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
One second. Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes.
900.
Article 28. Motion,
Parking
please.
fines. I move we recommend the town meeting votes in favor of Article 28 as written in the warrant.
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Jeffrey, yes.
Siddiqui, yes.
Moretti, yes.
900.
Okay. Can you circle back? How many do we have up for discussion?
On Thursday, we have Articles 6 and 7, 8, if we know the number by then, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 20, 21. Sorry, we did 21. 20, 22, 23, 29, 30.
It's 14 total.
14
Done
total.
about half.
We've done about half. Okay. So we'll continue voting on Thursday. It's going to probably take longer, so please be prepared for a relatively longer evening because we'll get into some discussion, I'm sure. For the record, for any folks that are watching this, we've had extensive discussions on all the articles that we voted on already, and that's why we were able to move through those relatively quickly. Thursday, it's going to be a little more discussion and get into some more depth on some of these more interesting articles, shall we say, just to use that phrase. Okay. Thursday night's meeting is at the town hall. It will be a hybrid meeting. I am considering a totally remote meeting for Monday since it is a holiday and the town buildings will be closed. But the reason I'm considering that is because over the next few days, we have to draft the report and recommendations of the committee. That has to be circulated to the committee for the new folks. And then once we're all comfortable with that, we have to get it to the printer, and that's got to be at the printer by Tuesday evening. Subsequent to handing it to the printer, I then have the task of developing remarks for the meeting, which are going to be based on that recommendation, that report and recommendation that we make. So we've got a lot of work cut out for us over the next few days. We've got some real veterans on this committee who've gone through it before. They know what it's all about, and the new folks will have their baptism of fire as well. So, is there anything else to come before the committee this evening? Hearing nothing, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Beth?
Blumberg, yes.
Ford, yes.
Bradley, yes?
Yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes?
Stafford, yes.
Yes.
Yes. We're adjourned.
I know.